Okay, we'll call to order this evening's meeting of the City Council. Roll call, please.
Mayor Brinkman?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Stahlman?
Here.
Councilmember Beckman?
Here.
Councilmember Cernanik? Councilmember Cole?
Here.
Councilmember Taylor?
Present.
Councilmember Valdez?
Here.
Will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Council, are there any changes to this evening's agenda? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. The minutes from our regular meeting of September 4th, any changes? Jim?
Yes, I do. On page 3, on line 73, you've got 5,000 acres, and it should be, I can't remember what it's supposed to be now, but should be 5 instead of 5,000.
5. Anything else? Okay, with that change, those minutes are approved. Reports, City Manager?
No report this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Beckman?
Good evening, everybody. I wanted to comment on how pleased I was with the budget session that we did last week. It took a lot of work by staff. You could tell that there was a lot of coordination done at the department head level that really was exceptional, and that the kinds of things that were discussed in the budget were relevant and important for the future of Littleton. I'm particularly pleased because we've proposed a budget going forward that seems to meet all the needs at this time while living within the revenues that are available, and the proposal seems to make some sense. We'll be talking about it more in an open session, but a city's future oftentimes depends on how the budget is prepared, and I feel pretty comfortable that we're aware of some issues in the future and that we've done the right thing with this budget. So I just want to say thank you to everybody involved.
Thanks, Bruce.
That's all.
Jerry?
I have nothing.
All right. Bruce?
Attended the Littleton Public School Board meeting on September 13. A couple items of interest. Ken Price, the city's IT director, has been working with the schools with respect to the what's called the ETAC, or the Educational Technical Assessment Group, I think, or Council. And essentially their charter is that they try to bring technology into the school system in support of an education that is quote-unquote relevant today and tomorrow. But the Public School Board also made a point of expressing their appreciation for some things that happened in conjunction with the city a number of years ago. A lot of people may know this, some may not, so I thought I'd just relay a very quick story. Apparently in 2003, and Ken Price was involved, the cable franchisee, which might have been AT&T at the time, was in the process of upgrading their system to run fiber on essentially what was an institutional basis, and according to the franchise agreement, it allowed the city to add some fiber or take some fiber as part of the agreement with the cable carrier. Well, LPS was made aware of this, and I believe Ken was involved in that, and the city, in partnership with Littleton Public Schools, basically got the cable provider to run incremental fiber such that there is today high-speed fiber to all of the public schools, and as such, they indicated there's roughly 14,000 computers in the schools today with high-speed capacity, whereas many districts around the state basically worry about downloading content where the lines go across the page because it's nowhere close to high speed. So LPS is real competitive advantage in a big part because of the city and Ken Price's involvement. They also went through some of their legislative priorities, and I'll mention that they did it, and if you want more information on that, then I absolutely recommend going to the LPS's website. The last thing I'll mention is that, in case you weren't aware of it, tomorrow, September 19th, is, of course, International Talk Like a Pirate Day. And it's an important day. We take it very seriously at home. So, for example, one of the dialogues we may have with the twins is, arg, it be me nemesis, no beard. You be roll the plank, matey, that kind of thing. So I encourage everybody to, practice up tonight and be prepared to talk like a pirate tomorrow in support of International Talk Like a Pirate Day. Grr. Arg.
And I've got to follow that. Well, recently Texas moved to 85 miles an hour speed limits on some of their highways. Utah has 80. So we're going to be interesting to see whether this has any effect on safety of the highways, and they'll be doing analysis of that later on, I'm sure. C470 Corridor Coalition, we're doing traffic modeling right now and developing visualizations in preparation for public open houses. They are Monday at Ken Carroll Ranch House, Tuesday at the Rec Center at Southbridge, Highlands Ranch. Wednesdays at Homestead Elementary School and Centennial, and Thursday is the Lone Tree Arts Center. They will have updated figures on everything that's happened so far with the C470 tolling possibilities. The Citizen Advisory Committee has been appointed. Littleton got 3 members on there, Susan Thornton, Jim Collins, and Mike McKeeson. And if any of the groups, any civic groups out there would like a presentation by C470 staff, we'll be glad to set that up if you just let me know. The Denver South Economic Development Corporation developed a matrix on value received for incentives. And I have that to give to Michael, just to put into what we're doing in our incentives economic development projects. Attended the Colorado Municipal League 2013 conference planning session. Kelly had submitted 2 proposals, and they'll be moving on to the next analysis. All the topics for the 2013 conference have to be decided by the end of October. So it's timely to get everything in that needs to be talked about in next year's conference. Michael and I attended a District 3 Municipal League meeting in Boulder. Their program was on their moving away from Xcel Energy to create their own energy project for providing energy to citizens. 2 weeks ago, we talked about, under titles 10, 11, 3, and 4, which we'll be doing second hearing on tonight, about the operating standards. And several of us asked to have those sent to us, and they were. It's 125-plus pages long. Haven't waded through all of that yet, but in going through part of that, I'm confused, and as much as I'm involved in this, if I'm confused, I think other people will be too. I'd like for us to either put this on the next regular meeting under general business or a special study session, whichever the city manager would like to do. But I'm giving fair warning that I think we need to have a discussion about some of those things that are in those operating procedures if you haven't had a chance to look at them yet. Dr. Cog attended the 2013 Board of Directors retreat planning for the last 3 years. We've been holding our retreats at Dr. Cog offices, but I think we may be moving outside for 2013. It is kind of every 4 years because of so many changeover with board members that we think moving it away 1 out of every 4 years would probably be a good idea. I just returned from a Sustainable Communities Initiative consortium meeting in Texas this afternoon. It was very interesting how different parts of the country are doing their HUD grants. Denver received $4.5 million in HUD grants to deal primarily with transportation along our transit corridors and specific planning for projects, a specific project along those corridors. So we're doing a little bit differently than what they're doing in other parts of the country, but it was still a very informative meeting to go to. Also at Dr. Cog, we're putting out a request for proposals to determine what effect the current Colorado state law regarding construction defects may be having on the diversity of housing, particularly housing stock in the region that is for sale multifamily residential units. And submittal deadlines for getting a consultant to do this is the 5th of October. We hope to have some report back to us before the end of the year. I'll keep you informed about what's happening on that. And I think that's all.
Thank you. Peggy?
Last week at the study session, the budget sessions, we heard information or statements about people leaving jobs for this here to go to work in other entities. And I would respectfully request, because it doesn't sound like there are that many, I mean, there are more than we'd like, but not too many to do this, if we could do follow-up with those people to see why they say they left, get information to us in a report, how much they were making here, how much they're making there, in total compensation and salary and whatever, just so we would have firsthand information from them. And I appreciate the study that we're going to be having done otherwise, but I think it would be nice to have a look back over the past year just to see. And then, I don't know if I should read this now or wait and pretend I'm a citizen. I received something from a citizen, an email that I was asked to read at council. So what would you prefer?
Is it something that should be read during unscheduled public appearances?
Well, as long as I can do it as an email from the person during that time, that's fine.
I think that's fine.
Thank you.
I also want to congratulate staff on a great budget process, and in fact, the change in style by reviewing it as policy questions, I thought made it a better opportunity for us to have more thoughtful dialogue on it and to really study this from the ground up, which I think is very important, and not look at the line items and pick around on those. So kudos to staff, and also the unity of the departments coming together and really presenting one budget on behalf of the city. I thought that was a great way of doing things, and I think we came out with a better process, hence a better budget. I do want to let everyone know that we have taken no formal action on the budget. We made staff recommendations to staff during the sessions, and we will be taking formal action at our public hearing, first reading on October 2nd, and the second reading, and also public hearing on October 16th. If anybody has any questions about the process used for the budget, I would encourage you to give a call to our city attorney and discuss any of your concerns at that point. So next we move to guest appearances, and the first one is our Wildland Fire Team. Let me get to my place. This evening, the Littleton City Council is pleased to recognize members of the Littleton Fire Rescue Wildland Team. It was formed in 2001 to improve safety, training, and effectiveness in the suppression of brush fires. The team consists of 34 individuals who deliver wildland and structure fire protection to incidents occurring within the Littleton Fire Rescue coverage area or because of a mutual aid request from another jurisdiction. This summer, due to extreme drought and fire, the team deployed to numerous fires in Colorado and throughout the western U.S. These deployments do not affect response time or reduce staffing in the Littleton Fire Rescue Service area. The majority of overtime and costs associated with fighting fires outside of our jurisdiction are reimbursed by either the state or the federal government. We have a number of the team members here, and we'd like to give you a small token of our appreciation. But I believe that your chief has a presentation. Do you want to do that first, and then we can do the handout?
Oh, good.
Chief Mullen.
Council, I'll fire the program up, and then I'll introduce Captain Brian Del Santos, who is the team leader, and he can comment a little bit briefly on these. Brian, if you would. Ladies and gentlemen, under Brian's leadership, the wildland firefighting team has attained national reputation. They are well known at the events that they attend, and that's why they keep getting the invitation for these events. So I've had Brian come forward and take you through these slides in just a real brief description of what he's seen, and turn it over to you.
Thanks, Chief. Thank you, Council. Good evening. It means a lot to, let me just start with the recognition from our own council like this, so appreciate it. And there's, lots of people to thank for sure, but the big thing I wanted to say here is that it's a big partnership. It's been great for the last 11 years. The Chief having trust in us to send us outside of our district borders, you, good council, supporting us financially, the guys that are working hard to do the right thing out there to support not only our citizens, but the people that are in dire need as well. Just a few pictures here, and I'll close. We go out numerous times throughout each summer, and usually it's because cities like us, communities like us, are in dire need of help. And the call can come down in the middle of the night. And most of the time it lasts 14 days, at which time we're subject to a lot of different environments, most of which is smoky, sleeping on the ground for 14 days, and working hard for 16 hours per day. We see some incredible fire behavior when we go out on these assignments, and the best thing is that it all comes back here to our citizens. We have made numerous notes of how many fires we fought more effectively here as a result of our deployments. So it has paid off for our own citizens here, as well as our own self-development as firefighters, and the need to help as well is fulfilled. We talked about it being partially reimbursable. Let me just clarify that and say that it's probably, after doing all the billing for the last 10 years, it's probably 99% reimbursable. So we work with a lot of different agencies, a lot of different resources, federal government, FEMA, etc. And like the Chief was saying, I can sit up here with a straight face and tell you that our name is very well known in the wildland community throughout the nation, actually. We've showed up on front page covers of newspapers in Idaho, us specifically, representing the city of Littleton. So, and we're learning lots of skills out there as well, stuff that we would have a hard time seeing here in our own district. So that on-the-job training is invaluable. We see a lot of people that come up to us and thank us for coming all the way from Colorado. And a number of our people have been affected, unfortunately, with either a sore shoulder, hurt knee, hurt hip, things like that as a result of this. But overall, we've maintained the health and welfare of our people very, very well. It's hard work. And like I said, the people come up to us, but I will say that it's remarkable to be recognized by our own council, so I appreciate it. That's it for the pictures.
Thank you. I will say that it is a great honor to be able to have a wildland team that we can help support these other states and other communities when they do get into this. We experienced it substantially this summer where wildland teams from other communities came here, and our reception and appreciation for them is equaled by the reception and appreciation that you get when you go to places. So, and without a doubt, you've got a proud group up here, so thank you for your service. I will come down. Bruce will read the names, and we have a certificate and a gift for you. Are we doing pictures? Okay. So after you, we will do a picture, so when you're done, just line up along here.
Okay. The wildland team is led by Captain Brian Dela Santos, and the members and their deployments this summer include Engineer Will Allen, who worked the Hewlett Gulch and High Park fires, Paramedic Captain Paul Amend, the Flagstaff fire, Engineer Ryan Anderson, the Waldo fire, Paramedic Captain Dan Arkin, the Hewlett Gulch and Flagstaff fires. Yeah.
Well, there's about 4 of them still in Wyoming right now, so.
Captain Larry Blanco, the Waldo fire. Paramedic Captain Brandon Bull, the Flagstaff fire. Captain Brian Dela Santos, the High Park fire.
Thank you.
And we got one. Engineer James Davis, the Flagstaff fire. There you go. Firefighter Eric Etheridge, Flagstaff fire. Firefighter Eric Hendrickson, the Sunrise Mine fire.
Congratulations.
Firefighter Brandon Hobbs, the High Park fire. Engineer Lindsay Miller, the Sunrise Mine fire. Paramedic Captain and Shift Training Officer Gene Nagel, the Lower North Fork, Flagstaff, and Squirrel Creek fires. Paramedic Firefighter Dave Patow, the Waldo fire. Paramedic Firefighter Jeremy Rath, the Lower North Fork and the High Park fires. Paramedic Captain Mark Rogers, the Sunrise Mine and Hewlett Gulch fires. Paramedic Firefighter Mike Ryan, the Flagstaff fire. Firefighter Bob Seffron, the Lower North Fork fire. And Firefighter Matt Sutton, who participated in multiple New Mexico fires and the Treasure Fire. Littleton City Council extends its sincere appreciation to these firefighters for the invaluable assistance they provided to our neighbors throughout Colorado and the western U.S. Their professionalism in representing the city of Littleton is exceeded only by our gratitude at their safe return, because, as we learned in Fire Ops 101, everyone goes home.
I'd like to just comment, too, that most of the folks that were invited tonight, a number of them are still on assignment. Then others just couldn't make it on down. But we do have other team members that I'd like to recognize that made it down here. Tyler Turley, Captain Turley, Lieutenant Chris Drouse, if you guys want to come down for the picture, too. Firefighter Chris Bradison. Engineer Mark Konechny, and Lieutenant Reggie Hyatt. And Captain Tim Woodward. Sorry, Tim, missed you back there. Tim, you gonna?
Good job.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
thank you,
Appreciate what you do.
thank you.
Okay, so this brings us to our portion of the meeting for unscheduled public appearances. This is an opportunity for any citizen to express an opinion or ask questions regarding city services, council policy, or other matters of community concern. We do have, I believe, three or four public hearings. So if you have anything regarding those public hearings, if you don't mind waiting until the time in the agenda for the public comment on those, that would be appreciated. Does anybody have, I know I have one card from Matthew Wilson. Do you want to come on down? And will you please state your name and address and you have approximately about 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Matthew Wilson. I live at 5627 South Loudon Street here in Littleton, Colorado.
4 minutes.
Okay. Madam Mayor and council members, I'm here as a representative of the Littleton Heights Loudon Street Historic District, Littleton's first and only, I believe, still residential historic district within the city limits. I'm here to urge the council to hopefully look fondly on a budget request that we submitted through the Community Development Director regarding the potential to create a set of historic preservation design guidelines for the neighborhood. The neighborhood historic district was created over 10 years ago, and an informal request for design guidelines was made at that time. However, due to limited staffing within the Historic Preservation Office, funding and other higher priorities like the creation of the Downtown Historic District, it has been put off. For those of you who don't know, historic preservation guidelines help homeowners understand the unique historical character of their homes, and also provides detailed information that can help them do a better job preserving those unique features and maintaining the repairs that they get as a refund of half their City of Littleton taxes as a benefit of being in the district. The letter was presented on July 23rd, and at that time, I think I've got these numbers right, there's 17 structures on the block, which is between Windermere and Powers, just 1 block long. It's homes, craftsman cottages from the 1930s. Of the 17, the letter of support requesting this was signed by 13 of the homeowners, and the only other reason we didn't get the additional signatures is either by the deadline, either they were gone on vacation or I was unable to contact the one home that is a rental property. I think it's important to note even one of the homeowners that is in a non-contributing house also signed the letter of support because she enjoys living in the neighborhood. In that 10 years, we feel the neighborhood has done they've not just sat around and waited, but we've participated in the bus tours, the walking tours that the museum does, as well as we worked with Andrea Minma of the Preservation Office and Historic Denver to do a workshop on the preservation of the historic aggregate, the outside of these houses. So we feel that now it's appropriate after 10 years that you would look fondly on maybe funding this request for design guidelines.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. And if memory serves me, council did direct staff to keep that item in the budget, so we will be taking action on that October 2nd.
Great, I appreciate that. And
Little bad news for you, though. I don't think you're the only one anymore. Arapahoe Hills just got national designation.
Oh, great.
So now you share it with another.
Well, that's good, because I know they had just completed their historic preservation guidelines, and we were very impressed with the work that went into that, and feel like I've been in the neighborhood since '95. We've seen homes within the neighborhood turn over several times, and the new young homeowners really want to do a good job preserving their homes. I think they just need more guidance that would help them understand what's unique about these homes, and certainly more technical advice on how to do the best job to preserve them. It is, after all, the only block like it of its in Littleton. Charlie Loudon, who built the neighborhood, was an early resident of Littleton and a former mayor. So we have a long history, and we'd like to preserve it for the citizens of Littleton and the homeowners.
Thank you.
If I could just say, too, as a federal employee for the National Park Service in the Intermountain region, I really do, we have a lot of firefighters, wildland firefighters, and I think it's great what the department does to send those people out, because obviously a lot of federal funds and energy and firefighters had a very difficult year this year in Colorado and throughout the West. So I think that's great. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Peggy.
So I'm going to read an email that I received from Charlene Williams on September 3rd. She lives in the northeast neighborhood. So she asked me to read this at the upcoming council meeting, but I didn't see it until after the day she sent it. So in 1924, and I'll give you a copy of this, Wendy. In 1924, a couple named Juan and Rosita Trujillo moved to Littleton from Valverde, New Mexico, with 5 kids in tow, and added another 10 kids to the mix in the years to follow. In the many years since, the 15 Trujillo children, along with their spouses, children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, have worked tirelessly and willingly for the greater benefit of the city of Littleton and its citizens. It would be nearly impossible to list the number of civic organizations, neighborhood groups, and government positions and volunteer positions the family has held. They have served our city, our state, and our country in an exemplary manner. Beyond those achievements, they have warmed Littleton with their gentle humor, friendship, love of gardening, and the outdoors. They have each, in their own way, made a significant contribution to Littleton and its people. I can say without the slightest hesitation that Littleton would not be complete without the Trujillo family. On Berry Avenue and Huron Street, we have an unnamed pocket park. I can think of no finer way to give our lasting thanks to the family than by naming this park for the family. I do hope that Council will give this consideration. Thank you, Charlene L. Williams. P.S. I think the park is just large enough by an inch to hold all the family members.
Thank you.
I guess on her behalf, I'm requesting that Council consider this at an upcoming meeting.
Yes, based on our protocol for site naming, staff is to notify council about a naming opportunity, and then we will designate an appropriate committee or ad hoc committee recommended by myself and then ratified by the council to recommend a naming, the site to be named. So why don't we, if you don't mind, Peggy, let's bring that up in general business and we can move it through at that point.
That's fine.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? Okay, seeing no one, we will move to item 7A, which is a memorandum of understanding regarding the Humane Society of South Platte Valley. Following a joint study session discussion with the Humane Society of South Platte Valley and the Inglewood City Council, excuse me, it was about the Humane Society with the Inglewood City Council. Council directed myself and the city manager to reach out to other South Metro municipalities to discuss alternative methods to providing animal shelter needs for the area. The City of Littleton, we currently contract with Humane Society for animal services within the boundaries of Littleton, and that contract is for $50,000 a year. In late 2011, the Humane Society staff approached the cities of Littleton and Inglewood and made a request for an additional $82,000. Resulting in the $41,000 increase for each entity. During our study session, both councils generally felt and supported the fiscal request at that point, but they also directed the mayors and the city managers to evaluate other structural options related to providing this community service. The discussion revolved around having a known and constant expenditure with a clear, defined level of service and service delivery. That analysis is in process. And it was clear from the study session that council is not willing to continue to increase expenditures beyond this request to Humane Society without a comprehensive and long-term revenue and expenditure analysis, which assured the two jurisdictions that the budget was sustainable. Manager Penny and I met with, or have spoken with, met with and spoken with either or 10 other municipalities, including Beaumar, Centennial, Cherry Hills Village, Columbine Valley, Inglewood, Lone Tree, Sheridan, Arapahoe County, and Parker, and have put together a MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, which you have, regarding moving forward on some, hopefully an intergovernmental agreement. At this point, we have approval from Bomar, Centennial, Cherry Hills, Lone Tree, and Sheridan. Columbine Valley has it scheduled for September 18th meeting, but they did give preliminary approval on the 10th. We have not yet heard from Arapahoe County or Parker. So I need to get a motion.
I move, go ahead, Jim. You got
I
it.
move the adoption of the consent agenda, item number A.
And a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion? No discussion? Bruce?
I don't know if you guys, in terms of the memo itself, is sort of just a nit, but if you're sending it out, it says the common values around animal welfare are promoting responsible pet ownership, humane treatment, and promoting responsible pet ownership, and some other stuff. So, just a cleanup item. Got it. Perfect.
And
Thank you.
I will give you another one. I don't know whether it's on page 1 or 2 because it's not numbered, but in number 2, sentence structure needs to be looked at.
It's a lot easier to do that than debate policy, just FYI.
You see what I'm talking about, Wendy?
Isn't that what you're hired for?
It says, each jurisdiction by signing below each undersigned member.
Anything else?
Yeah. Number 3, the third sentence, it will explore potential service delivery models for animal sheltering ranging from, so I'm not sure if that sentence is totally clear, but if it isn't, I'll leave it to you guys. And then number 1, minor, but editor in me has to say it, there's a period after the that needs to be removed in there, unless something else is missing out of that. Do you see that? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so council, anything else? With those minor fixes, a yes vote approves the MOU.
The vote is 6 in favor. The motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, agenda item 8A. Kirsten?
This is an ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, amending Titles 10 and 11 of the City Code concerning the Development Review Committee.
And Glenn isn't.
Yeah, Jan will be making
Dan,
the
do you want to come now? This is a ordinance on second reading, and so we will have a public hearing. First, we'll hear from Jan. Jan, is there any new news on this?
Well, I'll give you a public hearing roster for tonight.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Well, at first reading, Glenn made a formal presentation, so I'll follow up this evening to address the questions that council raised at the first reading. One of the questions, the first question that council raised is they asked that the portion of the public notice be clarified in the code, as it is some of it's made by the city and some of it's made by the applicant. The operating standards that we were proposing explain that issue in detail, where the city provides the signs to the applicant, and the city then is responsible for posting the legal notice on the website and at the courthouse and the city center and all. And what I've done in the code, the proposed ordinance that you have is the 3 places in the ordinance that talked about public notice. I've amended the language on all 3 of those locations to include applicant and city for providing notice. The other concern that council raised was when a site development plan approval has expired, they were concerned that that wasn't actually officially made notice to the county, so it would be picked up on records, and that is actually a very good suggestion, I felt. And we do notify the applicants when their site plan is pending expiration or when they've been granted a time extension. So, I see no problem with us also sending them notice to let them know that it's expired, and then we can record that letter with the county. I know if we have the legal description on that letter, then that will get picked up in title searches for future purchasers of the property to become aware of that status. So Another item, there was some concern about the appeal timeframes were too long. We had 60 days proposed for an appeal to be placed on the city council agenda, and I believe that was an error. So I revised the ordinance to change those to 30 days for the applicant to be able to put a appeal request onto council agenda. We also, though, have provided a time frame out of 60 days for the applicant if they need longer time for their own personal reasons, and that has happened in the past. So there was a question about preliminary plats, subdivision plats. If they're denied by the Planning Commission, are they appealed to council? And yes, I checked in the subdivision regulation, and that appeal for preliminary plat is to city council. One of the council people had a concern about the criteria that's proposed in Section 1055 defining minor landscaping improvements, and asked that it be measured differently rather than the proposed criteria, which was using landscaped areas less than 1,000 square feet. The planning board had recommended exceptions for minor landscaping improvements from the requirement that a licensed landscape architect prepare the landscaping plan, and they felt that requirement was a hardship for smaller businesses and some property owners, and so they had asked for the minor exceptions. Staff had originally proposed the simple criteria of the 1,000 square feet, as that's a simple way to measure that and enforce that accurately. The council had questioned whether this was too large of an area. Staff does not believe there's a need to be concerned about an area that large being designed by someone who's not a licensed landscape architect, because in our process for reviewing site plans, our city landscape architect reviews all the plans, and he's a licensed landscape architect with the state of Colorado, and he reviews all the plans in accordance with our requirements and professional standards for landscaping. So we felt that as staff that, we would not lose quality in the fact that he would be assuring us of his professional expertise and his review. Let's see. And then in the time extensions that we were proposing for administrative time extensions, I think there was a concern that staff would not act in an expedient manner in granting somebody a time extension. And so, and I actually discovered an error in my proposal here. I had suggested that we put language in the operating standards that states that a decision to grant or deny the requested time extension shall be given it should say more than 10 calendar days from the request. So that way an applicant can be assured that they will get their decision within a 10-day time frame. And then another issue that was raised was there was some confusion basically from the old way the code had been written regarding mini warehousing and their permitted uses, because it actually listed restricted uses, and it was confusing. And so the way I responded to that was I clarified that section by reorganizing it. So there's actually permitted uses listed, and then to clarify it, we listed a separate section of the restricted uses. And so actually this all involved in making the following changes to the draft ordinance that you had saw on first reading, and those changes are incorporated in the attached ordinance that you have tonight that's in your packet. And so those changes are all references to the public hearing notification have been revised to state that both the city and the applicant provide the notice. All references to the timeframes for appeals have been modified to reflect the shorter time period. And as I said before, the subsection 1048A for mini warehousing was reorganized to better clarify the permitted uses and the restricted uses. Staff finds that the proposed ordinance addresses council's goal of improving customer service by modifying the zoning and subdivision regulations, and recommends approval.
Thank you, Jan. Questions, council? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. If anybody would like to come down and address us on this agenda item, please do so now. Okay, seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. I need a motion.
I move to approve the ordinance amending Titles 10 and 11 of the City Code concerning the Development Review Committee, DRC.
Second.
Okay. We have a first and a second on the motion. Council, any discussion? Bruce?
I was just going to commend staff and the planning board. It's a lot of work. It's a tough slog getting all through this stuff, but it's very important to, in accordance with council policies, that we really do try to start, and we are, sending the message out that we're trying to be user-friendly, and customer service is a big part of what we are doing and intend to do, and this is spot on as far as that direction is concerned, so well done.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, a yes vote approves the ordinance.
The vote is 6 in favor. The motion carries.
Okay. Agenda item 8B, City Attorney.
This is an ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, amending Titles 3 and 4 of the City Code concerning the Development Review Committee.
Jan? This also is a public hearing and a second reading, so Jan, give us a summary, and then we'll have questions from council.
Yes, I'd like to give you your public hearing roster.
Okay, thank you. You're so good, Jan. You're the only one that does this. Hint, hint.
Make me run up there.
Once again, Glenn made the formal presentation. This ordinance removes the Development Review Committee from Titles 3 and 4 of the City Code and realigns their duties to the Community Development Department. Title 3 involves the business regulations and off-track betting facility, and Title 4 is the sign code. And one issue was raised at the first reading, and that was a request by council to add video slot machines into this amendment for Section 317.5. And as I took a look at that, and that chapter actually deals really specifically with off-track betting facilities, so it would involve amending that entire chapter. So my staff's recommendation was that if council's interested in that, we would be happy to look at bringing another ordinance for you that dealt specifically with that chapter, so we could have more time to evaluate the chapter and if there's any other provisions that need to be specifically addressed for video slot machines. And so I recommend, our staff recommends approval of this attached ordinance.
Council, any questions?
I would just like to say that I think we do need to address this and be preemptive of the fact before something comes up in the legislature in January.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we will open the public hearing. I don't have anyone on the roster, but if there's anyone that would like to come down and address council, please do so now. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, and I need a motion. Please.
I move to approve the ordinance amending Titles 3 and 4 of the City Code concerning the Development Review Committee, DRC.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Council, any discussion? Seeing none, a yes vote approves the ordinance.
The vote is 6 in favor. The motion carries.
Okay, 9A. This is a nomination request for the naming committee. Basically, what this needs is a blessing from council to move this to the Littleton Museum. I recommend that we do have the Littleton Museum Board work on this. They worked on the prior one, and they also basically created our guidelines for it. They have, they're very, very thorough. They have run this course at least once, and they actually are aware of this and are very enthusiastic, and I think have already started a little bit of work on it. So my recommendation is that we turn it back over to our museum board and have them come back with a recommendation, at which point we will take action, and that may mean a 30-day period for public comment. So I would need a motion.
I would move that we send this on to the Littleton Museum Board for consideration.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. A yes vote moves this on to the museum board.
The vote is 6 in favor, the motion carries.
Okay. And item 9B, this is a resolution opposing Amendment 64. Amendment 64 would regulate marijuana like alcohol. So, council, unless there's any discussion, I need a motion. Well, I need a motion, and then we'll discuss. I need a motion, please.
I move to approve. Oh, I just lost it. You're going to somebody else. It's gone. I got it.
Okay.
I move to approve the ordinance amending Titles 3 and 4 of the City Code concerning the... Nope, I got the wrong one, sorry.
You'll have to make it up.
Yeah, I have to make
I
it
don't
up.
have one.
I move that the
There's no example on here.
council approve taking a position as to supporting or not supporting Amendment 64.
Second.
Okay. Discussion.
I'll start.
Okay.
Go, Jerry, you're...
In this, it says that we have carefully considered this amendment. I know we had one meeting where it was added to the study session. We talked about it for about 15 minutes. I don't think we have given that close of consideration. As I've read more about it, about the pros and the cons for it, and it talks about things like the employers and things that we have in our letter here, I don't see the negative impact that we're saying that it's going to happen, that could happen, jeopardizing the federal fund projects. I would like to know what those projects are. Basically, I guess my feeling on this is that approving or not approving any amendment, state amendment, I just don't know what our position should be on these things. Right now, there's also two other amendments, 64, and I think there's another one called S, but we're not taking any positions on those. So, and they're every bit as important. I just don't feel as though the city council should be taking, the city should be taking a position on this amendment at this time. We should remain neutral, as many of the other mayors are remaining.
Anyone else?
Peggy?
I agree with Jerry. And I think we have a very intelligent city population that can make up their minds based on what is being presented. I think we did take a stand on some proposed amendments 2 years ago because the tremendous financial impacts that would be directly affecting the city. So I see that as different from this, so I'm not prepared to support this.
Bruce.
When we first brought this up at a study session a few weeks ago, I spoke out taking the position that I thought the staff could present us more information, and if the information was compelling, that it would be appropriate for the council to take a position, because I felt that the issues involved are significant to the community. It requires the community to take action, making ordinances to support basically a constitutional amendment that is in violation of federal law, and that there would be many conflicts, and I felt it was appropriate. There were also some other reasons that I presented. And I still feel my position is my personal position would be not to support Amendment 64. But I think it's a slippery slope when council begins to support amendments. And so I'm going to say that I'm in agreement that it may not be at all appropriate in this instance, but I would hope that we would keep the same standard in future considerations, that unless it's tremendously affecting the city, it's something that we should remain neutral.
Bruce.
My understanding of this, in part based on the information we were presented, is I guess I'm going to respectfully make the argument that I think the opposed 64 content is in fact compelling enough with respect to the potential impacts on the city that in terms of our obligations to promote the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens, that it's our responsibility to take a position. I think, part of what is at issue here is that they're just, one of the problems you run into is that the amount of the chemical that's included in the ounces or less of marijuana, the dosages, there's no definition of what a dosage of, THC in an ounce of marijuana is. So an ounce could have a lot or a little. Doing this from a constitutional amendment perspective is, I do not agree that these types of things need to be amended into the Constitution as opposed to legislatively derived, but that one wouldn't be as overtly an issue in terms of a city impact, in my opinion. But certainly the issues with respect to state versus federal workload, the issues for local law enforcement, for codes and licensing, local grow houses. I think we're opening a major can of worms here, and I really do worry about LPS. The LPS board, I didn't bring this up in my report, but LPS did vote, their board did vote to oppose this unanimously. I think we are stakeholders with them in terms of the impact this could potentially have with respect to the kids in the community, and I would support voting a vote that favors council opposing this amendment.
Anyone else? Well, I strongly support opposing this amendment, and in regard to coming out on issues that are a state issue, and if there are other ballot issues that would have a direct impact on the city of Littleton and its community, and on the work that we do, the work that our police do, our schools, our neighborhoods, then I think it is an issue, if it's being dealt at a state level for a constitutional amendment, that we should look at as a council, because it does have a direct impact. This particular issue is, not only is it a violation of the federal law, but it is a violation of the workplace law. The information that we have here, the Drug-Free Workplace Act of 1988, the information we have here was compiled by Chief Heather Coogan, and I think it does show clearly that not only do we not know all of the ramifications of this, but we certainly know that there will be ramifications. We've seen what we've had to deal with in terms of the medical marijuana and how that happened, and the different issues that came up with that. Fortunately, Littleton was ahead of the curve on that, and we enacted a policy and ordinance, and we got ourselves under control with that. Unlike some other municipalities, all you have to do is drive through them and you'll see what has happened. That is, I think, only a portion of what could be expected. This is certainly not something that, as an amendment to the Constitution, which essentially would take another act of Congress to change. This is something that, in my opinion, we cannot open the door on this, and I think that Colorado should not take a lead on supporting this, and I certainly don't think that Littleton should either. I'm heartily opposed to this. We have a motion on the table to, a yes vote would move us into another motion to determine yes or no. A no vote would kill it.
Say that again.
Your motion was to consider this. And so if we vote yes, then we will consider either coming out neutral, yes or no. If we vote no, then we won't move it forward.
Maybe we can have the clerk read it back. I believe it was a motion to oppose. You said not support, but to oppose.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Will you read it then?
It was just to be restated altogether.
Well, we have to use the one he said first.
He made a motion to approve the resolution opposing Amendment 64.
Okay, I'm
What
sorry.
I heard was to either approve or not approve.
I made a
He said
choice.
both.
I made a choice.
Yeah.
I said to make a decision to approve or
Yeah.
not approve.
So you're
That's
right.
what I
Well, I
heard.
guess you don't have
Okay.
a motion that you, we still have it for discussion.
Okay. I didn't get that out of the motion. I apologize.
Sound doesn't
Okay.
travel down there.
So
the motion.
so the motion is to make a decision to approve or not approve. So if we vote yes, then that means we'll need another motion as to what decision we'll make. If we vote no, it means we're not making any decision.
And that's what I intended. I wanted to know the council policy toward making a decision about an amendment, and then talk about this specific one.
Okay. So a yes vote would move us to a decision on whether to yes, no, or neutral. A no vote kills it.
Not
Michael
really, 'cause
doesn't think so.
Well, you can still make another motion to support it.
Right.
So go ahead and vote on this, but if I may, before you do, I would suggest that one of the things, because you guys have hit on what we started talking about at the study session, which is what are the policy directions on this, and if it's the desire of the council, staff would be happy to develop some set of criteria by which we would review amendments that come forward and then bring those forward based upon the criteria that council would identify. So we could, rather than doing it by committee, we could put together some of those base items and present it to you in a study session. I think that's the appropriate place to have the discussion about what is the appropriate role of the local municipality in reviewing issues of statewide concern, and do you want to take an opinion, and under what circumstances would you want to have those brought before you, separate from the motion that you may or may not have before you.
That's housekeeping. So we have this motion. Does everybody understand it?
No, so repeat it now, so I'm still up to speed, I hope.
A yes vote we would need to make a decision. We'd have to have another motion then to say yes, no, or
We're
neutral.
deciding on the issue of whether we want to decide.
Yes.
So yes means yes, we do want to have a decision of
decide.
some sort, and no is we stop now.
Right.
Is that?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Ready to vote?
The motion, or the vote is 4 in favor with 2 against. Councilmember Cole and Councilmember Valdez voting no. The motion carries 4-2.
Okay, so now we need a motion for yes, no, or neutral.
Well, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that the city take a neutral position on Amendment 64.
I need a second. No second. It dies for lack of a second. I need a motion.
Question.
Question.
This has to be, what is the time for doing this? Was there any specific timeline we were operating under in terms of having this approved, or doing this or not doing this?
No, there's no specific timeline. I think that by doing it, we would support.
Yeah.
If we came out against it, then those who opposed it would have this to
Okay,
use
but
in
there
their
wasn't
arsenal.
any- yeah.
There's no deadline.
Okay. Okay.
Motion.
I'll move that we adopt the resolution opposing Amendment 64.
I need a second. I'll second. And a vote.
The vote is 3 in favor and 3 opposed, and the motion fails.
No more motions?
The only one left is...
Okay, this was nice
We're in
and,
support of.
nice and sloppy.
All right, we can always move on.
There you go.
Yes, and we shall. 11A, City Attorney.
11A, or where we are?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is an ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, approving the refinancing of a lease purchase agreement for the Littleton Museum to produce an aggregate savings to the city and authorizing and approving the documentation relating to the refinancing.
Okay, this is a first reading, hence a public hearing. Doug? Thank you.
Jan set the bar pretty high there, huh?
Cool.
Good evening, Doug Farman, Finance Director. In 2003, just a little bit of background information about this topic tonight. 2003, the Littleton Building Corporation issued $15.4 million in certificates of participation, which we call COPs, and they were used to finance major museum improvements, a new fleet facility, and a new fire station. The city is currently a lessee under this arrangement and makes approximately $1.2 million in annual lease payments to the building corporation payable until 2023. The proposed ordinance before council tonight for consideration would restructure the current lease by changing the lessor from the building corporation to the trustee, which is UMB Bank. And that is being proposed for efficiency purposes, more direct access to the trustee. And it also accomplishes a refinancing of the current certificates by refunding the current COPs and issuing new certificates of participation, similar to doing a home refinance. The aggregate city present value savings is estimated at between $900,000 and $1 million, and that's subject to market conditions by the time the transaction closes. This would lower the current interest rates from a current range of 3.8 to 5.125%, and that would be reduced down to an average rate of 2.33%. Another major accomplishment in this ordinance would be that the lease payment term would shrink by 1 year, which would end in 2022 instead of the current 2023 term. The current ordinance would also utilize the debt reserve fund, which is $1.2 million under the current lease, which was a requirement when the city issued the COPs. This is subject to Standard & Poor's credit rating, and the city did have a credit presentation that we did with Standard & Poor's last week, and we feel very confident that we will get that credit rating of AA- reaffirmed, and that would maintain the numbers before you. But all of this will be subject to the credit rating and any possible changes to market conditions. The par value of the new COPs is estimated between $9.1 million and $9.3 million, and the transaction is proposed to close October 17th. There will be a second reading 2 weeks from tonight, which would be October 2nd. We have our financial advisor here from George K. Baum. We also have our bond attorney from Kutak Rock and our underwriter from Piper Jaffray here. We're all willing to answer any questions council has.
Jim?
Doug, if the interest rates change, if the rating changes other than what you're anticipating, what's the next step that will happen?
We're kind of on the borderline with that, because if the rating does go down slightly, it could mean that we might have to consider a debt service reserve fund similar to the current issue, but that would push the interest rates higher. And right now, that is unknown. We have not done any analysis on that if that rating does change. Even if it changes slightly, there is a chance we might be able to work the transaction without the reserve fund. We should get the credit rating by September 28th, and that will give us a better idea, at least before October 2nd, second reading, and we could bring that analysis to council at that point in time if that does change.
Anybody else have a question? Bruce? Okay.
Looking at the second page in my electronic version here, it's the page that has the charts with the different alternatives. Plan A, B, and C, or Plan
Yes,
A
sir.
and B. Rather, you look down at the bottom, and it talks about the anticipated costs of issuing this, and the total estimated costs are $126,315, and it lists how those costs are broken down. Did the city go to bid to find the best source for doing this?
We did. We went out for bid, first of all, with the financial advisor, and George K. Baum was selected. We also went out for RFP through George K. Baum, but we did select an underwriter through the RFP process, and that was Piper Jaffray. We received 3 submittals for that business.
Thank you.
Jerry.
So, Doug, just for me, the lame guy, essentially, we're just going out and refinancing here. Is that correct? In a sense, we're just going out and refinancing, and come to 2024, will be about $1.5 million less payment.
Yes, and breaking it down on annual present value savings, the total aggregate in today's dollars would be between $900,000 and $1 million. But yes, that is essentially correct. We will make less. We would make less lease payments each year, and then one less total lease payment would be
Just like
2022.
refinancing your own house.
Similar
Exactly.
to
Yes,
refinancing.
that was what my question was on that. But now I know that you said on here that this is only estimate and subject to market conditions and all that good stuff. At this point, with the comparisons that you have, which one would you say is the least risky?
The least risky?
Yeah.
I think we've given you our best analysis at this point based on current conditions. So I'm not sure. Maybe I could get our financial advisor up here from George K. Baum, Michael, to talk a little bit more about the risks that may be involved.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Mike.
As far as what you're looking at between Plan A and Plan B there,
Excuse me, before you get started, can you step a little bit closer to the mic and introduce yourself?
I'm Michael Persichidi from George K. Baum.
Thank you.
As far as the difference between Plan A and Plan B, the risks are about the same. It's just a difference of where you want to take your savings, more on an upfront basis or on an annual basis.
So it's upfront or annual, that is what it boils down to.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Bruce?
Well, all I was going to say really was, I spent some time, I've gone through this and rerun the cash flow economics just through my own modeling, but I've got some technical questions on the assumption set. I didn't necessarily want to go deep on that here on a first reading. What I was going to suggest was, conceptually, I think what we're doing makes an awful lot of sense. It's taking advantage of the low interest rate environment to basically reduce cash out. I talked to Doug and Michael this afternoon, and we walked through some of this, but didn't have a chance to speak with Michael or the other individual, and thought maybe I'd tee that up after this meeting and then report back on some questions that I had about just sort of the mechanics of what they were doing to put the analysis together. Conceptually, I'm in support of it, but I did have a couple of inquiries I wanted to run that I didn't think we necessarily needed to go deep on right here.
I would imagine if we brought in a fourth party, they could get different numbers for us, too.
Oh, I suspect that's probably true.
I think that's actually a good idea because you do have an area of expertise with that, so I would appreciate your input on that, too.
And get it to us as soon as possible, too. That'd be
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Thank you.
I think he's being
Any
facetious, but
Any
Mayor,
other questions, Michael?
I just in our discussion on this and in the recommendation, we were going to bring this to the council prior to the budget discussion, but we thought that, and we had talked to Councilman Stallman about this as well, that it would be more appropriate to bring it to you after we'd gone through the budget discussion and you understood what had some context for choosing either option A or option B. Because option A, to Councilman Valdez's question, is essentially just a straight refinance of your house. Interest rates are lower. You're going to take advantage of that. You'll pay some administrative costs, but you still, as you heard from Doug, close to $1 million savings over the period of the loan. The option B essentially acknowledges the challenges in our capital fund that we identified during the budget discussion and gives you an option to say by pushing that out a little bit, you can take some home equity line of credit, if you will. It's not truly borrowing additional money, but it's changing the repayment methodology, and then we can go fix the garage door or whatever the capital needs are that the council may identify. So we thought it was prudent to have this before you after that budget discussion so you had slightly different context. But that's really the policy question before you. You heard Councilman Stallman. He'll scrub the numbers for you, and you can rest assured he'll enjoy his financial ride along. So that's just to put it in context for you. I think that's what we're looking for from you, is that policy direction based on where you believe we need to be financially.
Any other questions? I do have one, Michael, if you could, on page 1 of the communication at the end, the last paragraph, this proposal is to enter into a leaseback agreement with UMB Bank, which precludes the use of the Littleton Building Corporation.
Maybe I'll actually let our attorney respond to that.
Okay.
So the 2003 COPs, we used the building corporation, and they held the title, and now it's the same exact financing structure, but we're not going through the building corporation. That's more common than the way we were doing it, and so we did meet with the it's building authority for this transaction. We met with the building authority on Friday, and they reaffirmed the transfer of the deed once the call of the COPs is made, and they're aware of what's going on here. So,
okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. And this is a public hearing, so I will open the hearing. We have no one on the roster. If anyone would like to come down and address council on this issue, please do so now. Seeing no one, what do I need?
Motion.
Motion.
And I'm not making it.
I move that the proposed ordinance approving the City of Littleton refinancing of its 2003 outstanding lease purchase financing to produce an aggregate cost savings to the city be approved on first reading.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Council, any discussion? Nope. Okay, yes vote moves it to a second.
The vote is 6 in favor. The motion carries.
Okay, item 11B.
this is an ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, approving a license agreement with South Suburban Parks and Recreation District for use of a healthcare clinic at the Buck Community Recreation Center.
Okay, and
Harry will be.
you'll be presenting? Okay.
Start.
Do you want to go ahead?
Oh, no, Mary.
Just a brief summary. The license with South Suburban Parks and Rec was initiated after a review of other spaces and determined that the Buck Community Center offered the lowest cost. This is a $5,000 a year agreement, and this is a multi-year lease. The policy question, Council, to keep clear, is do we support the licensing agreement with South Suburban Parks and Rec for the healthcare clinic at the Buck Center? Okay, so will you please give us your, I'm sorry.
Just to clarify, even though it's a multi-year lease, we determine the payments yearly in our budget cycle.
Yes.
Correct, and it has the TABOR language, appropriate language in there that it requires the annual appropriation by the council. And I would just add, before Mary gives you additional background, that this request was on the heels of the budget study session where we identified for the council that as part of our administrative actions on the to contain our health care costs, that we're going to be implementing the clinic for employees used to reduce or limit our exposure and our future expenditures. And so this action, as the mayor has pointed out, is a request for the lease, approval of the lease itself. That is the action before you this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes. And Mary, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
I'm sorry?
Will you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Mary Lucarello, and I'm the benefits manager with the City of Littleton.
Thank you. Do you have any comments?
Well, just to add to what Michael said, he is absolutely correct. We've done quite a bit of research.
Get closer to the microphone, please.
Sorry. We did quite a bit of research on trying to find this clinic, and we're very happy that we have entered into a license agreement with South Suburban Park and Rec. And the Buck Center facility was an ideal situation for us to be able to have an on-site clinic for these employees. We have a good working relationship thus far with Michael Bright, who is CEO of ACS, which is Adventist Community Services. And he is happy to share space with us in that facility and work with them to make sure that the operations go smoothly for both parties.
Great, thank you. Council, are there any questions? Barry?
Go ahead. Do you have a question? I'm sorry. I just a couple questions. Just so now, it said that the staff total compensation committee. Now, who's on that committee?
If you don't mind, I am hard of hearing and I wear hearing aids, so you'll have to just speak up a little bit more for me.
The staff total compensation committee. Who is that made up of?
It's the we have representatives from all the departments, and we have a cross section of the organization essentially that I had asked to come together and look at how we wanted to prioritize the compensation package from an employee standpoint. The compensation package is for the employees, so what were their relative priorities? So it's made up of representatives throughout the organization that are brought together under HR.
Line staff, that type of thing?
Correct.
Okay, then when staff recommends it, who is the staff that's recommending it?
I am.
You are staff?
I am staff.
Okay, cool. And then,
based upon the recommendation from the staff.
Got you. Now, I know you gave us a little heads up on this a while back, and I've read through it once. Now, and I think you had mentioned that a few other organizations have been doing this.
That is correct.
Give me some names again.
Summit County is the one that I'm familiar with, and I believe Mary's aware of others, but Summit County has been doing it, I believe, for about 3 or 4 years now, very successful, and they're in the process of actually expanding that program. I think during this study session, there had been, maybe Councilman Taylor had said, if we're successful, maybe we want to work with South Suburban and some of our other neighbors. And that is exactly what Summit County is in the process of doing. They wanted to get several years under their belt and make sure that it was fiscally sound for them and they understood what the risk levels were for them and then expand it out. And so that is certainly an opportunity that we have to try to address the ever-increasing healthcare costs.
So in a nutshell, the clinic is really just for folks with more of the minor type stuff, colds, those kind of things, maybe a sprained ankle or something.
Correct. Yep.
Not broken.
And for prescriptions in particular, that's one of the major areas that we look to get a cost savings is maintenance drugs and when you need penicillin and those types of things.
So, and the idea is that they could go during their work hours, get away, slip away to a relatively close place.
Yeah.
And not miss a lot of work for the city, which is good for everybody.
Correct.
And then hopefully with the potential of receiving. Now, the money that you had estimated as the savings potential, does that include that's time away from the office?
No, those are real dollar savings that we have. So we actually reduced the budget in the healthcare line item by that amount. And Doug is here. I don't know exactly whether it was the 150 or the 200, but no, those are real dollar savings.
So the other savings would be the reduced lost time.
Correct.
Thank
you.
That's
and there's more. It's not just the location. It's that when you schedule it, because you can schedule it online, that you have an opportunity. You're not sitting in the waiting room for 25 minutes for 3 minutes with the doctor. If you schedule it at 2:30 on a Tuesday afternoon, I'm not sure what the hours are, but you will be in there at 2:30 and in and out, and you get that 20 minutes with the doctor, or 5 if that's all you need. So there is additional savings.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Bruce?
Just a little history on this. The Buck Center was put together based on a need that was established back at the old Littleton Medical Clinic across the road. And one of the identified needs was providing medical assistance to people in the community who needed it. And the community had a few heroes that stepped forward to do this for a number of years. Dr. Alan Bortz is being one that now maintains, as a medical practitioner, control of part of the volunteers that work up in that clinic. But if you're not familiar with it, the Buck Center, when it was designed, took the need established and established a waiting room, reception area, pharmacy control area, and there's actually, I think, 5 examination rooms back in the Buck Center to meet that need. So this is a facility that exists. It's available, and it appears that the times won't conflict with any of these other community needs or any of these other volunteer organizations. So this could be a real win-win across the board for everybody.
Right.
Any other questions? Bruce?
We've said in the budget review and in the staff memo here as well, targeting 50% utilization, staff utilization of the clinic. And so again, the logic here is the city's already on the hook for these claims because we're self-insured. So if we can find a lower cost mechanism to deliver the service, then there's cost savings for the taxpayer. But what's the break even on this deal? If it's 50% utilization, what if it's only 25%?
Would you like, Ben?
I don't know if we have that.
Ben's
Do we
here.
have that number off the top of our head? No, we do not know, but we can certainly get it to you.
Okay. Just be curious. But the out is within 60 days. So, I mean, in theory, if it really languished, we could pull the cord on it.
Yep.
Okay. And
it will not.
Optimism. I like that. I'm not familiar with, but that, and as a preface, that doesn't necessarily mean it's, a problem. But I'm not familiar with this Care Here third-party oversight management operator. You want to talk about them, or what other? Do we have references on these guys, or who are they, and how big are they?
They're here. As a matter of fact, the chief operating officer from Care Here is here from Tennessee, and
fortuitous.
he'd be happy to talk to you about it.
Oh, good.
Please.
Come on down.
Ben Baker.
That's good planning.
Introduce yourself, Ben.
Please introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm Ben Baker, the Chief Operating Officer of Care Here. Glad to be with you. And you want me to give you an overview?
Yeah, please. I'd like to, give us some background on
Yes,
your
my
organization.
business partner, Ernie Clevenger, and I started the company in January of 2004. We operate about 120 medical clinics around the country in 20 different states. The overwhelming majority of our clients are cities and municipalities, so we have quite a bit of experience in working with groups such as yours.
You guys are privately held?
We are, yes.
How many employees?
We have almost 600 employees around the country.
Okay, and where are you headquartered?
Just outside of Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay, and other clients in the Denver area?
Yes, we have clinics operated by Brookdale Senior Living. There's also clinics in the Colorado Springs area. We're opening clinics for the city of Westminster at the beginning of the year.
Okay, and sort of a fiduciary issue, I mean, your guys' ability to deliver the services that we're contracting for, you have the financial capacity to do what we expect you to do. Have we gotten some sort of audited financials and so forth and so on, or are those available notwithstanding you're closely held?
Certainly. I'd be glad to provide that.
Okay. References, I mean, have you guys...
Certainly, yes.
Okay. All right, great. Thanks.
Good job. Interview is over.
So,
Any- Peggy?
I do have one question for
We have
you.
another question for you. Thank you. Come on down.
Just out of curiosity, so you told us how many clinics you have. Do you have some clinics that you no longer have?
Yes, we've closed about 7 clinics in our existence over the past 9 years. In some cases, you probably want to know why we closed them.
Yeah.
In some cases, we had one city that almost went bankrupt. They had to close. They could no longer fund the clinic. We've had some clinics, some clients that go out regularly to rebid the process, and we didn't win the bid back because of various changes in the services that were requested or for other various reasons. But only 7 out of the 120 clinics that we currently operate.
And do you have any lawsuits?
No, we do not.
I'm just asking.
No, we've never been sued for medical malpractice and have no current lawsuits against us for any medical process. This actual setting actually promotes less lawsuits because it's a situation where the provider is available much more readily for employees. There's no cost to the employees, and actuaries determine that when there's less of those sorts of factors involved, lawsuits are even less likely. So
Thank you.
It's also primary care services to begin with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce?
Yeah, I had one that just evaporated. You guys have physicians and/or insurance folks on your board of directors?
Well, we're privately held. My business partner, Ernie, and I are the sole owners of the company.
Okay, so there really is no board beyond that?
Right.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. All right, that's fine.
Okay.
I had something else I can't for the life of me remember what it is. So.
Well, you could bring it up in discussion if it comes back.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bruce?
Just one point. I gave a little bit of the history, but I just want to reemphasize that as it's been used historically to this point, it's been volunteers, nurse practitioners, doctors, folks who spend their time in that clinic space to provide the service. They haven't had anybody there sharing that space who was truly for profit. And so, you're coming into an area that has a different work history or a different premise than your premise going in. And I just ask that you be aware of that and respect the long tradition that the community has for that nonprofit volunteer function that's in there those other hours of the day.
Absolutely, certainly will. Thank you.
I did recall it in retrospect. The 50% take rate that we've been talking about, I mean, what's your experience with other clinics or communities that use these? Do you see that level of participation?
Yes, actually, the average is about 62% in year one, and it rises from that point forward. So the analysis that's been done has been done sort of in a very conservative fashion.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing no other questions, this is, Jim, I'm sorry.
Make a motion.
No.
We've got a public hearing.
No, wait.
Okay. Okay, so this is a public hearing, and anybody who wants to come down and address council on this issue? Marty.
Good evening, Council. My name is Marty Blizak, and I live in District 4. I wasn't expecting to speak tonight, but I'm glad I did hear the discussion, and especially reading the ordinance tonight. I do have a couple of questions that I hope Michael can answer. First question is the $5,000 lease payment to the Buck Center per year. When I review the proposed 2013 budget, I look under Fund 60 on page 271, and I see a lease payment for 2013. I see a zero lease payment for 2012. So the previous council didn't approve this for an expenditure, which brings me to my next point, starting November 9th, 2012. Can you explain that? Because it says the lease payment will start November 9th, 2012. And we didn't approve any budget for 2012 for this lease payment. So why is this ordinance even being brought up?
Marty, when we get to the end of the year, we always have pluses and minuses where we add things into our budget and deduct things from our budget in a budget amendment. And I'm assuming that this is going to come forward to us in a budget amendment for making the payments.
So what you're saying, Jim, is that this has not been approved by the council, but yet you're bringing forward an ordinance for an expenditure of $5,000 lease before the end of the year.
That's correct, and we can do that. We'll make a decision tonight, pro or con, whether to move forward with this. If we vote yes, then we've made a decision to move forward to spend $5,000. The finance department will come back to us before the end of the year and amend the budget to include that $5,000 in its appropriate line.
Well, is the end of the year November 9th? Is that close enough to the end of the year, or is it December? I guess I'm quibbling about the date.
I don't know when they're going to come forward with but probably our finance director could tell us when they're going to do budget amendments.
I would suggest that you table this motion until you get some numbers in hand and act accordingly.
We do have enough money in our contingency funds that will adequately cover this.
Okay. Now, let me ask another question. don't we own that facility? I mean, don't we own the property? And aren't we currently leasing that property to South Suburban for $1 a year? And then we're going to pay them $5,000 to rent out property that we own or are leasing to them for $1 a year? That, to me, as a citizen, just doesn't make sense.
We don't own the building.
We own the land.
We own the land, but we do
Okay.
not own the building.
And you couldn't come up with a better agreement than $5,000 per year? I guess that's my question.
That I wasn't part of the negotiating team. I couldn't answer that.
Okay, well, maybe that should be answered by staff.
Doug does want to come down and address some of your issues, Marty. Thank you.
I'd like to address the budget question, and yes, we will come back to council like we do every year, and normally it's in November, so it'll probably be even before December, but we will ask council to amend the 2012 budget, so this would be an item that the council would consider. We also have sufficient appropriations in that fund, the health insurance fund 60, as Marty was referring to, so there are sufficient appropriations right now to legally appropriate toward that lease. And then we'll go ahead and ask council to amend the budget and increase the appropriations for the last 2 months of the lease payments, whatever the setup is for the contract.
Jim.
Doug, the other way that this possibly could be done would be through a contingency transfer to get it into the budget in 2012.
There are special provisions for a contingency transfer, and I would avoid that. Plus, that's out of the general fund. This is proposed to come out of the health insurance fund. We don't have any contingency accounts in that fund.
Okay.
So I would recommend just sticking with the health insurance fund.
A question. Oh, sure, Marty.
Thank you for the explanation, Doug and Jim. I guess the final question is, when did the council vote on going forward with this policy statement or policy condition?
The council has not voted to go forward with the health clinic.
Okay.
The council will have that in our budget on a first reading on October 2nd. If we pull it at that time, if we don't keep it in the budget, if we take it out, then this lease will not be signed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I do a bit of a follow-up to Marty. We don't have a date for a second reading on our ordinance in our motion.
Correct. I believe we actually have been removing those out because we will, yes, the city clerk has advised we're removing that as well as the affixing the signature.
Yeah, that's a good one out. Will this then, do you anticipate it coming then back to us after the budget's approved? It will come back in 2 weeks?
Mm-hmm. Because this is just for the lease. And unless staff puts something in their council or agenda communication that says that it won't come back in the next 2 weeks, that's just, it will come back in 2 weeks. There's been times when we've stretched it out longer. That's when it'll be in the agenda communication.
Okay, so what I want to make sure is that I believe Councilmember Stallman asked that there was a 60-day out. Is that correct? So there's a 60-day out. So if we approve it before we've approved final budget, we can still get out if we don't approve it in the budget. Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Council? And actually, we're still in a public hearing. Is there anyone else who would like to come and speak to Council? Okay, seeing none, we close the public hearing. I need a motion.
I've moved to approve the ordinance on first reading authorizing the city to enter to a license agreement with the South Suburban Parks and Recreation District for the use of a health care clinic at the Buck Community Recreation Center.
Need a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. And now discussion. Bruce, and then Bruce.
That actually was one of my questions for tonight is the relationship between South Suburban Parks and Recs, the City of Littleton, and that clinic. I wanted to know, to paraphrase the question the way Marty did, what is the circumstance in which we are going to pay to lease something in that building? How was that arrived at in that decision process? Just not from a business practice of South Suburban or from a point of view of us trying to find an appropriate area in the city, but more in terms of the relationship of two taxpayer-supported entities.
I'd ask Mary to come down and speak to how the lease was negotiated.
I'm sorry, how did we decide to choose the...
No, how did we come up with the lease rate and the partnership with it? I did not participate in those discussions. And
yeah.
Mary, you'll need to come to the mic. Oh,
She can't hear.
she needs to understand the question.
okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Not from a business practice from the city or South Suburban, but from a level of two taxpayer-supported initiatives here in town, South Suburban Parks and the city of Littleton. It seems like we're paying from one hand to the other with taxpayer funds, and I'm not sure what the legal circumstance would be that would allow us to do that, and whether there might be an easier way to reach some kind of lease agreement. Again, I'm not talking about the money involved amount or the business practice, but the taxpayer supported project. It just seems odd to me.
I can try to help out here. I wasn't involved in the negotiations, but I think that the part of the issue was that ACS, the nonprofit that's in the space right now, is paying a certain amount of money, and so it was a business decision probably on South Suburbans to share that space with us and still recoup what they're getting from ACS. Does that sound right, Mary? Does that answer your question? They were already receiving payments for that space from a business, and so now they're working essentially a deal with the city to share that for our purposes as well.
I still question the taxpayer supported to taxpayer supported. It just seems odd to me, but if it's supported by legal ability to do it, I'm fine with that if that's what the...
It's absolutely legal, and it's very commonplace. Most governments do not let other governments use their space for free because it was different tax dollars that were used, and they are collecting. We would not, most likely, I would not be recommending to our city council that if South Suburban wanted to come and use some of our space, that we would let them have that for free. So, I mean, whether or not you agree as a policy level, but from a legal standpoint, it's certainly, since the attorney already said so, I'll reiterate, not an issue. It's that board and that organization chose to charge us for it, and we felt like it was appropriate in the scheme of what we're trying to accomplish, and it is a good location, as you have identified.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion. The motion, yes vote, will approve this ordinance and move it to move it to second reading.
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry, Bruce.
well, I just was going to ask, $5,000 is like $416 a month. I mean, considering the nature of the relationship we have with them, wouldn't it be somewhat reasonable to basically say, look, you know, we do a lot of stuff for them, they do a lot of stuff for us. Somewhere within there is just the use of the facility without having to transfer the dollars. It seems to me like it's such a de minimis amount on a monthly basis anyway. Yeah, it's $5,000 a year, and to Councilmember Beckman's point, I understand your point,
we can go back. I mean, the board has already taken action, or David Lorenz, depending upon what their legal procedure is, but it's already signed on their end.
Well, I guess maybe I'd ask,
go back,
take another run at them, and just, as a good faith gesture, considering we're not talking about, hundreds of thousands of dollars here. It seems like it's at some point in the broader relationship, it sort of is a small item for them and us, but
we'll follow up.
It's still
with
the principle of it.
And close the loop with you on second reading.
Perfect. Sorry.
Okay, Peggy.
So did we get rental prices from anybody else?
No, I don't believe so. This was the location that we went to, and we I was not part of the negotiation, though.
And I would just add, what I do know is that's part of the equipment sharing with the entity that's already there, the nonprofit that's already there, made it more feasible than another location.
Well, that would be so for the first year, for sure, but if we're looking at this long-term, because there is another building right up the street that probably has lots of vacant space in it.
Yeah, we looked at this space, as Mary pointed out, because it already had, and I think as Councilman Beckman said, it did not require the upfront capital to retrofit of this, and that's a significant amount of savings from having to go in and create essentially a medical office space. So we did do our due diligence on making this location for a variety of reasons, as Mary had pointed out.
I would suspect, so maybe for the second reading, you might be able to ballpark, just big ballpark anyway, how much it would indeed cost to outfit something from scratch. Because there must be some numbers related to having outfitted that one to begin with. It's just part of the kind of question answers that some people apparently
If the council would like us, I'm not sure that we have that, and that would take some additional time. So if there's interest by the council in having that information for second reading, we could. But I'm not sure that we have that because we primarily looked within our existing facilities and then quickly honed in on this location. And unless there's a desire for us to do some additional research and do that. And it would be a great ballpark. I'm not sure it's going to significantly address the policy question before you, but if there's desire by council.
Jerry?
And I think, as we all know now, part of our procurement procedures are that we should have written justifications for the money we're spending and how we're spending it and why we're sole sourcing it. I think this would be one of those. If you didn't go look anywhere else, you went right to that building, then whereas there are other possible sites, I think you need to single source why this.
I disagree. We did look at other locations for it, and as I just stated, most of the locations we looked at were within our facilities because we would have, aside from that capital cost, we would have no ongoing costs at that point other than that. So we did look, and I can come back on second reading and identify if there were any other additional locations externally that we looked at. But I think fairly quickly it was honed in because this, as Councilman Beckman has said, this is already used for that type of thing. So this is not a sole source in that concept of the procurement. This is because there are other locations for this.
That's what I said. There's other locations, but so why are you? Have you written it up as to why this is the spot?
I hope we have. We can clarify for second reading, but it has to do with proximity to the facilities. It has to do with minimum.
Yeah, and that's why I just want to make sure because our procedures do say that we will have that written up.
We'll clarify
for
second reading.
This is a $5,000 expense over a period of a year based on receiving upwards of $200,000 minimum or maximum savings. Frankly, $400 a month to lease a place that can serve over 400 of our employees and their families. I don't think that that's blowing the wad on any of it. I think it's a smart fiduciary decision. I think it's close to the facility. We're familiar with the Buck Center. They have the operating area. They have equipment, et cetera, that we don't have to buy and replace. This is I'm not seeing a lot of problems with this, but we'll go ahead and answer some of these questions, bring it back for second. Are we ready to vote? Yes vote brings it back for second.
The vote is 6 in favor. The motion carries.
Council, I jumped the agenda, and I apologize. I had said we would discuss the naming of, what is it, Huron Park? In general business. So if you'll indulge, we'll take a step back, go to general business, nomination request from the naming committee. I think that the best thing to do would be at this point, I would make the recommendation based on the request that we received to send this to the museum board and have them do a thorough review of it. And unless there is any opposition to that, are we okay with doing that? I don't know that we need a motion to do that. Michael, do we need a motion?
No, we did.
We need a
We
motion?
didn't do
Can we do a head nod?
I'm sorry.
Well, we did a
We
motion.
did do a motion.
Let's do a motion? Okay.
Yes, on
So
the first one.
we would need a motion then that would move this to the museum board for consideration.
I suggest if we're going to do that, we put it on our next regular meeting so that we have it announced on the agenda.
All this is doing is sending it to the museum board. There's no
I know,
public.
it's just, well, whatever. I mean, Jim made the one request last time, and then we delayed it to put it on general discussion here, so.
Well, I think we wanted to do it cleanly and then follow the proper process for
Okay.
sending it, so.
It's okay.
Yeah,
I
I would,
just-
the difference is you have a formal request in writing already.
Yeah.
Okay,
We brought Councilman Taylor's
Okay.
request back in writing.
okay.
So this will come back, I mean, this will go to the museum board. It is our discretion to send it to the museum board, and then they come back with their recommendations, which will or could include, if it's the 60-day or it's the 30-day public,
After their recommendation? After, okay.
I'll make a motion.
correct, sure.
Cool. I move that we send this back to museum board for them to work on. Yeah,
Very good.
According to our procedure, whatever it is.
Very
that
good.
that we just put together.
Yep.
Yeah.
I need a second.
Second.
Okay, yes takes it to the museum board for consideration and recommendation back to us.
The vote is 6 in favor, the motion carries.
Okay,
And then I have something to point out. Sending things to the museum board is not in the guidelines, the naming guidelines. So I'd like us to tweak that guidelines policy so that that's clear.
Because it does say sending it to the naming committee, I think, in the guidelines.
Yeah.
It's not.
yeah, the guy, it says that to designate an appropriate committee or convene an ad hoc naming committee recommended by the mayor. So as the mayor, I'm recommending it goes to the appropriate committee, which I see as the museum.
And we voted on that.
Yeah, so I think we're good on our,
Should send it to the licensing authority. Just
all right, Bruce. Okay, so we are headed to an exec. Bruce, do you
All
want
right.
to take us there?
I can do that. City Council will conduct an executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute Section 24-6-402, Sub 4, Sub B, for legal advice related to the medical marijuana lawsuit, and included in the executive session would be all of council, the city attorney, and the city manager.
Okay. We need a second.
Second.
Okay. Vote to go into exec.
And Mayor, before you take a vote, just to remind the public that we're not going to be conducting any further business after this.
Correct. We will, after this vote, we will adjourn the meeting and won't return.
No, you don't adjourn the meeting until after the executive session.
Okay.
Okay,
We still won't return.
thank you.
Yeah.
The vote is
That's
6
what
in
I
favor, the
thought I
motion
said,
carries.
Wendy.
Thank you.
All
I know.
right.